Welcome to Dark Horse Auto and Diesel. In this video I'm going to show you start to finish how to replace the upper intake manifold and valve cover gaskets on a 3.5 Duratec Ford engine. This process will be very similar on the 3.7 EcoBoost as well. A lot of this video is an excerpt from my video on replacing the timing chains and water pump on this engine, but I felt that having this video on its own would be helpful for people that are doing just this part of the job. If you've seen all or even part of the timing chain video, you can probably skip to about the 10-minute and 45-second mark since you've already seen everything prior. So this whole job can be done in the vehicle. It's significantly more difficult, but the procedure is going to be largely the same with everything. I just have the advantage of it being easier to work on, and I can actually show you a lot easier what we're going to be doing here. Things might be in a little bit different order than what you'll have to if you're doing it in the vehicle. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is take the intake manifold off here. So we'll go ahead and get all the wires unhooked from it. Let's push in on that. That pops out. Go ahead and get this out of our way. Get this green wire while we're at it. It's very delicate, so be careful with it. And then we'll pop these three wiring clips out of here. Obviously mine's got a couple of broken clips and stuff on it from previous mechanic, so yours might have a couple more things holding it down than what mine does. Now we'll come over here to the back side of the manifold and we're going to take this off. If you're doing this inside the vehicle, it's going to be pretty much impossible to get that off beforehand, so you'll probably just pull it with the manifold, but you just give that a pull and it pops out of there. So we just got 8mm bolts here. And there's one hidden underneath this wire here that isn't being very cooperative with me right now. And then back here there is a little support bracket for this, and you can pick which bolt you want to take off. I'm going to take this one here just because I can reach it easier. In the vehicle you're probably going to want to take this one out. Next I'm going to start getting the valve covers off. Those are pretty simple as well. And it's not 100% necessary to remove this harness here, but I'm going to, just for ease of working on stuff. This here, on mine anyway, is a 13mm. Really, it's a good idea at this point to go ahead and cover this up with something. All right, now that I have zero chance of losing my 10mm socket down there, we'll move on. So we'll go ahead and get our fuel injectors unclipped here. Real simple, push in on that, pull out. Go ahead and do that on both sides while we're at it. And then just pop them off of these studs here. Then we'll come to this side. This one's fun if it's in the vehicle. And then we'll work on this section of the harness. Sometimes these things get kind of difficult. Nothing broke. Don't be surprised if that happens to you on at least one of them. Oh, that's great. All right, minor surgery time. Thankfully, that red part isn't exactly critical. It's just kind of a redundant safety feature to make sure this thing doesn't end up popping loose on you. There we go. If you were doing this in the vehicle, you'd probably be about an hour deep into this already. Go ahead and unhook you too so we can get that wiring harness further out of my way. Oh, and you. And then we'll move along to the front one. You don't have to unhook the crank sensor down here because you have to pull this little cover off. So if you have any of these left over, you're obviously going to want to take those off because all of these have to come out of here. Like 90% of mine are broken. So next we'll get our coils pulled out of here. That's just going to be 8mm. Grab a hold of it and just wiggle it out of there. Sometimes they're a little stuck. You'll probably have a fun time with these if you're doing this in the vehicle. I can't recommend prying on it like I just did. But I'm going to be replacing them anyway, so it doesn't matter. And next what I'm going to do this off camera. It's optional, but I'd recommend it. I'm going to get my shop vac and just kind of suck all this crap out of here just so that we have a cleaner area to work in, because we're going to be taking these off here real soon, and I don't want to be getting contaminants in my good engine. Just to make things a little easier, get it out of my way, I'm going to take this hose off, and that you just move that thing over and it just pops right off. All right, now we can go ahead and start taking our valve cover bolts out. These are all 10mm. That one sounds nice. Now these are all captive inside there. They got a little grommet that holds them in. Just make sure they're all loose. And next we'll get under here and gently pry up on it. Sometimes these are pretty stuck on here. Just be patient with it. I can't imagine these valve covers are cheap to buy. And one thing that makes it difficult too is you've got all these little grommets in here and around the sensor that we have to kind of pull through the cover. And just work your way around it. And try not to mar up the gasket mating surface in the process. I feel sorry for anybody that has to do this with the engine still in the engine bay. This sucks right now. And now we move on to the back one, which now I'm really glad that I don't have this thing in the vehicle. Keep in mind on this one, there's a bolt, not a stud. Now, same deal. Gently work it loose. Ow! Bitch. Man, that's stuck on there. So the first thing you're going to do, if you haven't already, is on the bottom side here, I've already got mine out, but just pull this gasket out that goes all the way around right now. And then we will go ahead and pull, so just mark that one, and that'll be the only bolt that's different all the way around. They're all the same except for on the right side valve cover. It'd be on the back side of the engine on a front wheel drive engine. And there's one that has a bolt, but you know, just mark that one. I'll put a picture up where it's at in case you forget. Pair of pliers might help. And forgive the camera angle. It's the best I could do with the current camera setup I have. So I'll try to make sure everything stays in view of the camera. This is also a good time to go ahead and change your PCV valve out. That's the one on the right side valve cover, or like I said, the back on a front wheel drive. They're supposed to be replaced about every 100,000 miles. Most people never replace them until they have a problem. So the process on these is pretty simple. All I do is I just take a knife and cut the old gasket. Just put a little slit down it. And then just pop it off. And then as far as replacing it, if you want, you could put a little dab of oil on there. I don't bother. But you just take the new one and just kind of twist and push, and it slips on over, and that's all there is to it. Do that about 372 more times and you're done with that part. Alright, so since I'm an idiot and forgot to start the camera when I was doing the spark plug well seals and the VVT solenoid seal up here at the top, that guy, I didn't catch it on video on how I take these out, but there's nothing fancy to it. I just took an 1.1/8" socket and it fits down through the bore pretty well, and just hammered them through, just straight down. And that works on the VVT solenoid too. It's a little bit tighter, but not too bad. On the right side valve cover, it's going to be slightly different because right there's a lip that it'll want to catch on, but once you get it hammered through far enough, it should just kind of pop right through. So now we'll go ahead and just clean these bores out a little bit. I just take a little scuff pad and just kind of clean it up a little bit, and then take a rag with some brake cleaner on it. Make sure there's no burrs or anything like that to catch the new seal. Now we will take and get some fresh oil and lube up the bores and also the seals. Place it down in there, and hopefully you paid attention to the orientation. If not, the side here that's kind of got the extra lip in it goes up. This side here that's got the tapered end will go down towards the engine. Then we'll grab an 1.25" socket, because it's not going to go all the way through. Place it on there and then just drive it in. And there's two ways to know that you've got it in far enough.
Giggity.
One, you can flip the valve cover over, and there should be a little bit of protrusion on the inside. And also on the top side, it's going to sit, there's kind of a machined lip in there. It's going to sit about flush with that. So I need to drive this one in just a little bit further on one side. Make sure you're trying to drive this in square. If it's off a little bit, it's fine. But if you get too far off, you're going to have some serious problems. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect. It's not in a high pressure area, but try to at least get it pretty close. Now we'll do the VVT solenoid seal. Same process. And then the same deal. The more cupped side goes up and the tapered side goes down. And you can also use a block of wood, which I'm about to do. Much better. Then just drive that in until it's flush, and that's it. Yes, I was hitting that quite hard. And now if you haven't done so already, go ahead and pull your gasket all the way out from around it and make sure it's at least reasonably clean. I'm just going to take a rag with some brake cleaner on it and just run it through the whole channel. Next we'll grab our new underside gasket here, and there is a difference between left and right, so be mindful of that. And all we'll do is we'll just start setting it in here, making sure we have it going the right direction, of course, and then just kind of start getting it placed in the places where it has little corners in it, like around the bolt holes and stuff. That way you're not stretching it out. And just kind of go around and push on the whole thing, make sure it's all seated. And then just take all these studs and bolts, whatever you got, and just start sticking them back in the holes. And they just snap right in like that and holds them in place. And then once you get all of these put back in, you're pretty well done. You can get your valve covers put back on the engine. Now I'm just gonna clean up all the gasket mating surfaces here. We'll put some oil around these so that the new gasket slides on easier. And we'll also put some oil on the inside of the seal bore on the valve cover itself. And then we'll go ahead and get these attached. If you have a little bit of oil residue left around this, it's not a big deal. But here, and the same on the other side, you want to make sure it is extremely clean, because we're going to end up putting a little dab of silicone here at this joint. Don't need a whole lot, just kind of smear a little on there, about like that. That's good there. Then we'll just take it and set it on here. And we'll actually use the bolts to help draw that down. I'm not really going to follow any particular sequence at the moment, just going to try to get it drawn down some. Since I've got a couple started already, I'm going to use this, but very, very gently. Just trying to save myself a little time here. Just kind of running it down until it touches. Now I'm going to hand snug all these down in sequence. Next I will torque these all down in sequence to 89 inch-pounds. Alright, then repeat on the other side. It's slightly different, but the book just says right side similar. So just kind of follow that basic pattern on the other side and you'll be alright. And once everything's torqued down, just take a look at all your spark plug bores here and make sure that you see shiny metal around all the way around the gasket there. I had a couple, I already fixed it, but had a couple where it just wasn't quite over where it should be. So all I did was just take a little punch like this and just gently tap along the edge in here to try to kind of drive it down where it's supposed to be. Just be very gentle with it. And be careful too that you're paying attention to, especially like this one here, because when I was doing the other side, it was actually, the gasket center part was still sitting up here, and as I tightened it down, it actually just tore it out. So I wasn't paying enough attention to what I was doing, and thankfully I had a couple extra seals laying around, so I had to drive it out and put a new one in, but just be mindful of that. Now we're going to go ahead and reinstall the upper intake manifold, and I've got to clean this up a little bit yet, but go ahead and get that cleaned up, and then we'll flip our manifold over and we'll just take that gasket out of there. It's pretty self-explanatory. I don't think I need to show you how to do that. Then you go ahead and clean that up as necessary, and then you'll take your new gasket and just push it in there. It only goes one way. Now we'll get our manifold put back on. A little bit of oil might come out. That's not a big deal at all. Don't forget to hook this here back up to your PCV valve back there. Some of this is going to depend on how you took it apart. And like this bracket here, I already took the bolt off the side of the head. Since I took the manifold off with the engine out of the vehicle, I got to go ahead and take this completely off. And just to make things easier, I'm going to go ahead and get this kind of attached. And then I'll just flop it forward so it's out of the way. Now we should be able to get this put back on here. Probably should have waited to put this wiring harness on until after this part, but it'll be fine. And just make sure that your gaskets stay in place, because if they fall out, you're going to have a massive vacuum leak when you start the engine, and it's going to run like crap, and you're going to spend a while trying to figure out what happened. I know, because I've done it. All the bolts for this are the same except for this one here. It's going to be the long guy here. Go ahead and just get them kind of threaded in. So before I torque anything down, I'm going to go ahead and get this hose hooked back up to the PCV valve, which is not exactly the easiest task to do. It's one of the reasons I'm leaving the manifold loose a little bit. So now we'll go ahead and get these bolts torqued down. Some models have a bolt here. Mine does not. Not really sure why they did that, but I'm not an engineer. Ask them. And now an additional 45 degrees. I know it's probably not exact, but certainly close enough. And then we'll get this hooked up so it's out of our way. Oh. See how many times I drop this. None would be ideal. Got it. And just snug those down. There's probably a Torx back on them, but just snug is fine. Just don't be stupid with it.